Well, this was very informative. The question I have for you is, since Pono isn't going to be actually mastering, the music for the files, will you still be exerting any influence or any quality control over the stuff that you put up for sale? And in particular, in my interest, and I'm so relieved you at least acknowledged the loudness wars. I want to see files that capture all of the original dynamics of that recording.
Yep.
And the problem is the trend in digital mastering, unfortunately, it's been not to make, this is a dirty secret, but not to make remasters sound better, they just sound louder. And to get them to sound louder, you first have to crush the dynamics. So, are you working
So
with
there's two topics in your question. I think I know where you're headed, just in the interest of time. There's two questions here. One is sort of a best practices idea for recording. The other is provenance, and we're really understanding where the recording came from. We have contacts at all the labels, guys like Nico Bolas and Steve Berkowitz and Damian Lewis and people like that know where this stuff is hidden. You can't just walk in and ask for the 1971, highest res version of Simon & Garfunkel Bridge Over Troubled Water unless you know which one you want. So we're really going to spend a lot of time getting back to understanding what the original recording was. If we can figure out what it was made on, there's a spec sheet on that recording somewhere. We can't do that for everything in the catalog. But for the stuff that really are those master recordings, we care about provenance. We care about the chain of custody on that recording. On the other side of things, we're going to get into sort of a little bit what iTunes did on Mastered for iTunes, which is really a recommended recording techniques. So that if you want to play on Pono, here's the way you should record, or the way you should master, or the way you should mix. That's going to take a few years to get in there. I think people are going to do it on their own. The Grammy Foundation Producers and Engineers Wing is 100% behind us on this. Neil got the award from the Grammys this year for the artist most committed to sound quality. That was pretty helpful to 3,000 recording and mastering engineers in the country. So we're on it. There's a lot of stuff that we won't be able to fix from the past. But remember, we have the ability to go back and get that original flat master before the compression, before the dynamic range was squished.
And will that information be available in the store so people know whether this is a newly created digital master, what the source tape was, who the master was?
Yeah, we're going to try to put as much metadata as we can. Metadata is a whole other can of worms, but anything we know about it, we're going to put up, including if we went and got it. The other thing we have the ability to do is ask the studios to make some high-res stuff for us that isn't high-res yet, to go back to the original analog and put it in 24:192 with no compression, no parametric EQ applied after the master tape, those kinds of things.
Is the Kickstarter campaign still active?
Unfortunately, it has ended. It ended a week ago Tuesday. I say fortunately because it was like taking a red eye every night for those of us on the Kickstarter. But it ended two Tuesdays ago on the 15th of April. We ended on tax day, just so we made sure we got that $300 before people had to deal with their returns that day. Yes?
Hi. If there's a certain amount of high-res music out there right now, HD tracks, acoustic sounds, all that. If that's X today, what will it be in a year or so? Or 2 years?
In terms of the quantity?
Yeah, how do you see the high-res?
Yeah, so Warner has the most high-res of any of those labels by a pretty long shot. Universal's had a video based on Blu-ray oriented effort, and as you know, Sony's had their DSD effort that came from the SACD movement. So both the other labels have actually had another movement in high-res for many years. Warner actually, under Edgar Bronfman Jr.'s leadership, was really smart about 5 years ago. They just started archiving in high-res. And in fact, they didn't do it because they wanted to release a lot of high-res. They did it because they were worried about the archival of all of their precious recordings. So there's more material from Warner than from anybody else, especially at 24:192. But I think you're going to see everything, sort of next year and beyond, start to be available, at least in 24:48. And that's the big move, getting to 24-bit recordings. The sampling frequency, if we could have 96 or 192, we'd love it. But man, if we could get everything to 24:48 as a starting point, that'd be a huge move up for music. So I don't think there's any debate that it's going the right way. And now the studio, part of what we did at Pono was to create a business case for doing that. We'd like to give them a reason to do it. It wasn't very interesting to do something in 24:192 if you're selling it in MP3. oh, this side of the room has all their questions answered for some reason. I was so much clearer to this half of the room. Smart people on this side. We got a string of folks over here. Go ahead.
That's a quick question. When are the rest of us going to be able to buy one?
We're going to have a pre-order site the 1st of June on our site. We still have some capacity in December. What happened is we sold out the supply chain for October of some of the critical parts in Kickstarter. So what we did is the last ones introduced actually had a December ship date over the last 10 days of Kickstarter. We had to stop promising anybody anything in October. We moved it to December. So for the ones that we order as the 1st of June on our own site, they'll get December shipments until that supply is gone. By early next year, we'll be able to stabilize it so that you can get one in a week or whatever. But right now, you can still get one in December, time for Christmas.
So I was a first day Pono supporter.
Thank you very much. What'd you get?
I got the Neil Young was open, and then I had to go do something for like 3 hours and came back.
I'm sorry about
I had to
that.
get CSNY. Which is
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's what my wife got.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a great one. I think we're going to put the Dark Star album on. But anyhow, go ahead.
Oh. So the question I have is, it's on the first day of the Pono site, you actually had a lot of descriptions about, if in your FAQ, you were basically saying you would support other high-def music. If you have
Absolutely.
it, you'll be able to load it up.
Absolutely.
But one of the things I was wondering about, and it really is kind of a philosophy thing.
Can I stop you for 1 second? That's a great point. I'm sorry I didn't make it. This player is not proprietary. If you have high-res music today in WAV or AIFF or FLAC, it plays beautifully on our player. You can play your ripped CDs on here in whatever form you ripped them. You can play our music on Haskell and Kearns and Wi-Fi Man and whatever. So there's no walled garden here. Our player's completely open, as is our music. Thank you.
But now, to take that a step further would be the idea of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Will the ecosystem support other content,
Sure.
like other high-res stores?
It's a JRiver desktop.
Okay. And then and it's the philosophy, are you going to be a company that's really making it off the device or on the content? And then are you guys going to end up making an end run? If you get enough devices out there, you can actually have artists go directly around labels and things like this. I mean, you could really, it's from a philosophy standpoint, you don't have to get into it, but I was just wondering.
Well, it's an interesting set of questions that would take another hour to do justice to, but let me do a quick version of all of those. In the short run, the player is important to Pono because the music store is going to take a while to come up, and we don't want to raise $1 zillion of venture capital and a whole bunch of other things. So, we're selling the player for kind of the lowest price we can sell it for and help the company, come up and be a company and be funded. The music store will take a while to get up. I think over the long run, the cost of the player will come down, the store will get bigger, it'll all work like that. That'll be great. In terms of artists, we had an unbelievable amount of independent artists that came to us and said, can you just put my music on the player store? There are bands out there without label contracts, small bands like Fleetwood Mac who don't have a label contract. No, seriously, they have no contract, right? You're gonna, the YouTube revolution, the record companies are great, but there's a lot of people out there that just are independent artists, and to the extent we can manage all that, I don't know that we want to become a label, but we're certainly open to any of that music being downloaded and playing on our player. It doesn't require that it has a Warner or a Sony or a Universal badge on it to play on our player. There's a ton of great independent labels out there. We've had probably 300 or 400 inquiries from little niche labels that have 15, 20 releases, and they want to make sure it plays on Pono.
So acoustic sounds or someone like they have a bunch of high-res stuff or HD tracks, you'll be able to go from their store directly and download onto your device through JRiver.
Yeah, everybody who listens to my player today listen to my HD Tracks library. Thanks to Norman David.
And that going forward,
Same thing. It's a movement. One more question? Yeah.
First, I say I've got ordered the yellow one.
Yeah.
Because I thought the prototype look was just the most fun or something.
Yeah. It's the iconic one, right?
Yeah. My question is, going back to when you put together the business plan
Yeah.
versus where you are today, what's the biggest surprise?
Probably the interest in connecting to the artist through the player. That took us by surprise. It was like, everybody get out of my way, I want the Foo Fighters one. And you can put Foo Fighters on one of these two and it's the same, but it's not a Foo Fighters player anymore. So the connection to the artist was the thing that I think we were so gratified to just see people want to do something that the artist did. By the way, it's an interesting validation of Neil's credibility in the music industry. We did every single one of those limited edition players with an inscription on the side of the band and the right to put 2 digital albums out there without ever talking to a lawyer. Imagine that. No, imagine that. Like, oh, well, my lawyer will call your lawyer and we'll send over our documents. No, we have 1 day to do this. So, Neil's manager calls the manager of the Eagles, who's Irv Azoff, who trained under Elliott for 10 years. Hey, Irv, can we do an Eagles version? Sure. We had an Eagles version out that afternoon. So that's Neil's credibility in the music industry. We'll get a lot of benefit out of that. Yeah.
What's the approximate playtime full charge?
About right now it looks like about 7 or 8 hours, but we haven't really tested it because our firmware is not optimized for power management yet. But it's probably longer than you want to listen in one sitting. Yeah.
You think I'd borrow one of your players to go down the hall and check it out on a bunch of systems?
I'm going to be around tomorrow for some press stuff. I might play it in a few rooms. I did forget my long splitter cable though. But anyhow, thank you so much. I appreciate your patience and your interest.
We'd really like to thank John for being here. This is a really interesting thing to have at the AXPONA show. We want to thank all of you for being here, and we have a lot of cool things going on, so enjoy yourself the rest of the weekend.